Hello, everybody. So thanks for attending this talk. I'm going to be talking about player-centric IAP monetization from a game designer's perspective. So I'm a game designer, and sorry, yeah, I'm a game designer at working at GameBerry Labs. That's one of my Twitch emotes. So I used to stream on Twitch, and I made a few emotes. So yeah, there's one. And GameBerry Labs is basically we're a company in Bangalore, and I work on 3 of their games. One is Ludo Star, one Parcheesi Star, and the other one is a fairly newer game called Backgammon Friends. Um, and our 2 biggest games, Ludo, Parcheesi, we have a MAU of around 9.7 million in Ludo and 14 million in Parcheesi, $50 million in Ludo and $150 million in Parcheesi. So we're a fairly big company. We have a revenue of around 100 million. And you would assume that most of this revenue would come from ads. Because like in India, that's usually what you would see. And in companies, only 30% would be IAP. But we've done it the other way around. For us, it's just 30% revenue comes through ads and 70% through IAP. And that's what I want to talk to you guys about today. Because yeah, so I'll go into 2 separate aspects. So talking about a few design concepts first. So how player motivation is something that we've really focused on, and that's what we've built up the whole core on. And also the second aspect of, I'll just explain a few examples of a few success stories in our games. I think you guys will be interested in that because I'll literally mention to you revenue figures and like DAO figures and stuff that we have retention figures from our company. So yeah. So first off, for player motivation, um, so we call this the flywheel of player motivation. So knowing your player is the most key thing for any game, as a matter of fact, especially for a designer. So knowing your player, knowing what they like, and giving them what they want. But then after you give them what they want, you have to know your player again because they're not going to be satisfied with what you've given them. They're always going to want more. So this is an endless loop that you always have to live by as a designer. And we figured out that there's an archetype of player called the gambler. And basically, they are a certain category of player that is willing to take high risks, high reward, and just basically thrill seekers. And all of these work in tandem to create the gambler archetype. So most of our players in the game are of the gambler archetype, and you're going to see this guy constantly popping up through my slides, and you're going to know that this is where like we've kind of caught them. So this is one of the sentences that we live by, monetizing a player when they're at the peak of their excitement or engagement. So through our core loop, I'll explain through a few examples soon, but through our core loop, how we've actually get players to monetize players through their excitement or engagement when they're at the peak of it. So right, sorry, okay. So basically, player motivation. Like what I'm trying to show here is like it's a melting pot, and how we build up player motivation is through these 3 aspects. So one is the core loop, one is the meta, and the other is the live ops. So I'll go through each of these and how we've kind of build them up in our company, and they go through phases. So in phase 1 for the core loop, I'll first go through all the phases of the core loop. We introduce something called entrance fees. Now, entrance fees, it's a fairly standard thing in most games where you enter a game of Ludo or Parcheesi, you pay 500 gold, and then your opponent pays another 500 gold, and they both go into a pot. The winner gets 1,000, the loser gets 0. Fairly simple, that's pretty much it. But this wasn't giving us enough revenue. So that's when we started thinking a bit more, and we moved on to the meta of it, which I'll explain a bit later. But this is what we started off with. Then the second layer of the core loop. We needed to introduce a premium currency in our game, and that's where gems came in. So obviously, in most games, your premium currency is the one that's going to drive a lot of monetization through, and that's exactly what gems did for us. So we were trying to link gems with the core loop of our game, and that's what got us kind of thinking about a certain thing called what we call undo. And this is actually our biggest monetization driver in the game. So undo is basically like, let's say you're playing a game of Ludo, you roll your dice, you get a 2 and a 3, you don't want that, you click on an undo, you just get to roll your dice again. That's basically it. It seems a bit, you might think unfair, that's what even we might think, but then players love it. So this was a basis of what we kind of built our entire game on. And yeah, this was a huge turning point in our game. So there he comes, the gambler archetype. So these are the kind of things that we kind of built our game upon. So the third layer of the core loop, um, like I mentioned again, we kind of wanted to build up on undo. So the mechanics of undo were fairly standard. So you can just use one undo per turn. You can use 8 undos totally in a game, and it has steadily increasing price points. So basically, your first undo would cost like 5 gems, then it would cost 10 gems, then 15, so on, so forth. But then players started wanting more. They liked undo, maybe got a little bit boring for them, but then they just wanted more out of it. And then we started thinking, okay, I mean, since undo is doing the best for us, why not try and do something with undo? And that's where this just seems like the most simple thing to do, but all we did was just give them something called double undo. So instead of just doing one undo, you can now do 2 in a turn. And that's basically it. And you see 4 of these guys coming in. This, again, I'll mention figures later, but this is the biggest thing that we've done in our company that's increased revenue and retention. So something just as simple as this. All right, then moving on to the meta. So for the meta, like I mentioned earlier, we just had one single entrance fee mode. But then all we did was just increase more entrance fees mode. And that also, again, plays to the gambler archetype where they want the high risk, high reward. So they started paying the 1 million, the 5 millions, and they just want to play, and they don't care if they lose because they can just buy another 5 million from the shop and just continue playing. So yeah, so that was our second layer of meta, and then, sorry, the first layer of meta. Then the second layer of meta was, so this isn't implemented yet. I'm just sharing a few secrets, basically, of what's going to be coming soon. But in backgammon, we're kind of working towards a little more elaborate XP system. So currently, the XP system that we have in our game are very box standard. So it's just like you gain XP, you gain a level, and that's pretty much it. Like it's the level that you're at is like kind of tells the player how long you've been in the game for, and that's it. And players don't mind there not being a reward as well, and that's what we've learned. But we're trying to improve this whole loop of giving them more rewards, unlocking features through level up systems. It's a fairly simple thing to understand, but this is what we're working on right now, and also changing how our lobby looks. So I'll give you a little sneak peek into that. So our current backgammon friends lobby looks like this. So it just has a play button with, and then you click on that, you go to a separate screen where you can choose your entrance fee mode. But what we're trying to do is, again, play to the gambler archetype. So we want multiple entrance fee modes to be shown on one screen. And instead of them having to click from one to the next, like over here, if you want to see more entrance fee modes, you'll have to click on the plus button and just keep scrolling through. But over here, I'm showing you 3 options. And also, as you increase in level, you see the word pro. So that's basically unlocked based on what level you're at. So if you're like level 20, you're unlocked pro. Let's say level 25, you're an expert. And with each of these levels, you get more entrance fee modes unlocked. And we're going to throw them at your face and try and test the gambler archetype to see whether showing them these modes right on the face, which is one click away, would they be willing to engage with that game mode. So this is what we're working on. It's still yet to be developed still, but yeah. And for the third layer of meta, we haven't reached there. We haven't gone there yet because we're still working on the second layer. Then I'll move on to the first layer of live ops. So for live ops, fairly simple. We had to create some events. So one of our first events in the game was something called Kill the Monster. So all you have to do is play games, any entrance fee mode, doesn't matter, you're going to get the same amount of something what we call ammo. So the tomato and the eggplant, basically they're ammo in the game. And you got to click on the cannon, shoot the monster, and get his HP from like 100 to 0, for example. So the tomato does more damage, the eggplant does less damage. And you get these by playing the game and maybe taking your token to the end goal in Ludo. So yeah, and also you can collect the tomatoes by opening chests. So we just have a chest system in our game, and it's a little more expensive variant of it, basically. So the problem with this was that, sorry. The problem with this was that it was a super basic event. There was no depth to it. It was just, I mean, it just becomes a repetitive thing. You just keep on clicking, clicking, and then I mean, people just got bored of it. And there's also no milestone reward. So it's just like you just have that one end goal reward, and that's it. It would take like 3 days to get. And personally, even I don't like it. Um, so that's when we go to the second layer of the live ops. So first off, we introduce something called Big Win. Big Win is all it is we're disguising some more entrance fee modes as timed events in the game. And that also plays into the Gambler archetype some more because they feel that, okay, now it's a special event, even though it's literally just, if you think about it, just the same thing as us just giving them, clicking on one more plus and clicking, going into a 10 million or a 20 million bet. So 10 million, 20 million was only available through this event. So yeah, this also did wonders for us in the game. And then, like I was mentioning, the Kill the Monster event, we tried a version 2 of it where we give milestone rewards now. They started doing a little bit better. And then we tried a version 3 of it where, there's free ammo landing on the board. So while you're playing the game, there would be times when, like you see the ammo on the board, a person would purposely want to use undo to try and get the ammo on the board. Some people care about winning, so maybe they would just ignore it. But there's a lot of people that would purposely spend to try and get the ammo to further their progress in the event. So, right. So, basically, just to highlight the differences between the three. So, in V1, you had no milestone rewards. In V2, V3, you did. On V1, you had same ammo for all the entrance fees. So if you're playing 500, if you're playing a 1 million bet mode, you're still getting the same amount of ammo at the end. But in V2 and V3, we changed it such that if you're playing a 1 million bet mode, your one token to home basically counts as like 2 or 3 ammo instead. So again, incentivizing you moving on to higher bet mode so that they can lose more and they might buy from the store, or just playing into the whole high risk, high reward thing. Right. And then we come to KTM V4. So all we did was introduce some more levels. So basically, we introduced a battle pass system into the event. And again, like this also did wonders for us. So we, each of these levels to progress. So initially it would be like maybe 20 HP, and then the boss would be another 50 HP, then 100 HP. So it just keeps on becoming harder. But the amount of rewards that you were getting from the pass, and the pass was pretty cheap. I think it was just like $299 or something. And that incentivized players to, even if they reach like level 3, there was a total of 7 levels, even if they reach like level 3 or 4, the amount of free rewards plus the paid rewards that they would get for the $299 would be way more worth it than just going into the store and buying like a pack of coins or a pack of gems. So again, like this event did really well in our game. Right, and there is no third layer of live ops because we're still on the core loop. So, right, so just to summarize whatever we've talked about so far, in phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. So for the core loop, we have first initial entrance fees, very basic, and then we just added more entrance fees on top of that. And then now we're trying to create a new lobby screen to reduce clicks and show them more entrance fee modes all at once. And then you have, for the meta, we introduce undo, and then we have something, we just doubled it and call it double undo, and we're still working on the phase 3 of it. And then for the live ops, the KTM V1 event, then Big Win and for phase 2, and then KTM V2 and 3, 4. So the KTM V2, 3, 4 were released pretty in like close timelines, so which is why I regard it all as phase 2. Right. So now to the success stories from our games. I'll bring in, I'll talk about it later. So our purchases are revenue chart. So how that kind of looks like, we make around $1 million monthly, $1 million monthly, and only 29% of that is through ads, 71% through IAP. And of the 71%, 71% of basically any other revenue. And of the 71% in others, 65% goes into gems, 16% in gold, and 19% in like several other, like there might be like 10 other features where they could spend on. So again, you see gems is the driving force of the revenue in our game. And for Ludo Star, it's even better. So we make 1.5 million monthly, 15% ads, and 85% others. And of the 85%, 76% of the revenue comes through gems. 8.5% gold and 15.5% others. And for backgammon, it's still a fairly new game, so I don't have that much data to to go off of. But basically, our DAO is around 7K on average. Our undo usage is fairly high, 22K daily, and our revenue is only 1K monthly. And backgammon, actually, just to give you a little bit of insight, it's a game we were really scared to add undo in it, because knowing the players of backgammon, you would know that they are so, like, they love the game so much that they don't want anything to change. But then we're just like, screw it, let's just try. And it seems to work. Maybe they have the disconnect that, okay, this is a game and on the phone, whereas I'm playing the game in real life. Like, maybe that kind of thing is there in the player. But yeah, we've understood that we had a few teething problems initially, and this game is out mainly in Turkey. So the Turkish audience, we've realized, is a very cheap audience, which is why they initially they weren't using a lot of undus. But then once we started giving them a few free gems, that's when they started using it. So we thought that they couldn't understand what undo did, but they could very well understand what undo did. It's just that they didn't want to spend their own gems. They didn't want to buy anything. So when we started giving them a few free gems through different methods, then they started using it. So that's when we saw the 22K happening. All right, so I want to dig a little deeper into gems to give you a little more figure-oriented slides. So, so gems overall would you can use them to buy a few cosmetics in the game, like some cool dice skins or some token skins or whatever. You can open chests faster. So it's like a 12-bar chest. You can pay a few gems and just open it quickly. Tier skip and battle pass. So you can, if you just want to go quickly through the battle pass, you just pay some gems and you can go through. And re-entering a streak mode, which is only there in our Parcheesi Star game, where there's a special mode where you need to win 5 games in a row to get the final reward. If you lose in between, you can pay gems and like re-enter back into the tournament at that stage. And then of course there's undo. So now just talking about undo specifically compared to these ones, I want to show you revenue figures of how different it is. So in Parcheesi, we have all these 4 modes that gems provide, and then we also have undo. So only 12.5% revenue is for everything else, and 87.5% revenue goes into undo. And for Ludo Star, it's even bigger than that. So we don't even have the special mode that's there in Parcheesi as well. So there's fewer things that people can spend gems on, but there's only 4% revenue that goes into these other aspects, and 96% of revenue goes into undo. Sorry. So you can see why undo is such a huge feature in our game, and why we try and make players, anytime we think of some new feature that we're trying to create as a designer, we always try and focus on trying to get the players to use undo while engaging with that feature. How could we maximize on their undo usage with like a new event that we're trying to do? So yeah, basically that. And in backgammon right now, there's nothing else that they can use gems on, so it's 100% their revenue goes into undus. But yeah, can we do more? So like I mentioned earlier, we started thinking about ideas for undo because players wanted more, and we wanted to maximize basically the fun and the revenue aspect of things. And that's where, like I mentioned earlier, sorry, I haven't mentioned this. My bad. We wanted to link undus with entrance fee modes. So we started like speculating as to how we could do that, and there was just a fairly simple solution where, as your entrance fee goes higher, the number of gems that you need to spend on an undo would increase as well. So if you're playing a 500 entrance fee mode, your gem cost would be maybe like 5, 10, 15, 20. But then if you're playing a 1 million bet mode, it's going to be, it starts off at 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, so and so on. So because players are risking a much higher gold amount, they would be willing to spend a lot more on gems as well, even the initial gems, because they don't want to lose that amount, basically. So we just try and like churn out everything that we can out of the players. Right, and also we tried one more thing with this, where we tried 3 different pricing variants. So one was the constantly rising price, like I mentioned, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70. The one was a stagnant price at a low cost. So it's, for example, you have 5, 10, 15, 15, 15, 15, 15, 15, or a stagnant price at a higher cost. So it's like 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 30, 30, 30, 30. And eventually we figured out that the constantly rising price was the one that was working most, and actually that it makes sense for us also. It gives us the most gem sync and most revenue, so we just went with that. And then we wanted to explore a bit more. So, like I mentioned earlier, undo mechanics, one undo per turn, 8 totally in a game, steadily increasing price point. And all we did was introduce double undo, where you have 2 undos per turn, 16 in a game, and steadily increasing price point. And this gave us an immediate effect of 2.5x to 3x in our revenue. This was just an immediate effect. But then across weeks, it went to a 100% increase in revenue. So yeah, and also more than 55% of our DAO started using undo after double undo was released. Before that, it was just around. So I'm forgetting the figures, but yeah, it wasn't as much as when double undo was released. Right. So then there's a great game designer that said make things unfair to seem fair, because that's kind of what we've gone with in the game. Because I feel some of you might think that yeah, doing an undo in a game might be kind of like unfair basically, but the more you do it, the more it kind of seems fair to the player as well, because maybe everyone has accessibility to it. You're getting gems through the game. Everyone can do it. It's just you're choosing not to do it if you're not spending the gems. So, and yeah, of course, that designer is me. So another one of my Twitch emotes. So, yeah. All right. So then I'll go into a few events experiments. So again, going back to the kill the monster events, our participation numbers are around 35 to 40% of the entire daily active users, and a completion rate is around 3 to 4%. So, and the amount of revenue that got increased was 13%. So when we introduced KTM V4, like I mentioned earlier, you saw a lot of those gambler guys coming in. KTM V4 was actually initially released in one of our sister games called Ludostar 2. We weren't working on this game at all. Like there was no development being done, absolutely nothing. We just had this KTM V4 event that we thought we'll just throw it in this game. Let's just see kind of how it does, and let's see what kind of impact it has. And it had a 1,000% increase in revenue in that game, where the amount of revenue that was making was I think around 1K, and that was just solely through ads, nothing else. And it increased to 10K as soon as the event came in. So we immediately ported it within like a couple of weeks into our Parcheesi game. And I wasn't able to get the exact numbers, but basically it did increase the revenue significantly. And yeah, so we've seen, we're going to be porting it to, I think, Ludosar as well. So yeah, just these small changes in these events and introducing these new and built up updates to these kind of events has seen massive success for us. Yeah, but why did it work? So KTM V4, like I mentioned, you get milestone rewards, more milestone rewards than what you were getting earlier, and players love that because you don't have to finish an event to fully get the reward. You want something at every single stage. So that was one, and then a progression system. We had added a progression system inside an event, so that also feels like the players are kind of like it just gives the players a little more some more satisfaction and the ability to get more rewards. And the last thing is just something new, because the events that we had in our game earlier were just getting monotonous. Most of our events are pretty similar. Like even if like we have something called a football event, which is very similar to the KTM event, except it's just a different skin. It's like a reskin, and it just looks like a football court. So players just want something new at all times, and obviously that's something that most of you would know as well. But yeah, that's fairly simple. So to conclude this talk, I just want to go back to this flywheel, because I feel this is the most important thing for designers to know, especially. You have to know your player, knowing what they like, and giving them what they want. And this is just an endless loop that you just have to live by. And yeah, try and incorporate any new feature with your biggest monetization driver so that you can maximize your revenue out of the monetization driver. Yeah, thank you. So, and yeah, I added the S because there was no S in this GIF. But okay.
Hey, Sohrab, thanks for the presentation. Hey. It was a great insight. So in Ludo, I was thinking, luck being a big factor that strikes a balance between, a free player and high spender, every turn. So
sorry, I can't hear you.
So what I was saying is, in Ludo,
yeah,
when we see luck as a huge factor, which is going to strike balance between a free player and a high spender. And now we have undo.
Yeah.
So what was the player sentiment when you have this feature in the game? Like, because I see undo as a huge favor for the high spenders,
Right.
and if I matched with a high spender, he's gonna use undo for all the game throughout the game,
Right.
and he's gonna win. So how was the player sentiment, especially on the free players?
Right. So how undo is designed, if one of you is using undo against me, I will never know. I will never know that you've changed your dice roll. So that's one thing. Because the animation only happens once the final dice roll comes in. Before you've, sorry, after you've used your undos or not going to use your undos, whatever. So that's one. The second is actually players didn't really care when undo came in. Actually, like it's surprising even to us because we immediately think exactly like how you thought that it would eat into that fairness quotient that okay, it's not going to be fair for me if I don't spend and he's spending, but that's not something that we saw. Players loved undo, but they do get pissed off if dice rolls are constantly against them. Because that, I mean, in any dice game, if any of you work on a dice game, the biggest complaint from players is the dice is unfair, the dice is rigged, blah blah blah. Blah. But for some reason, they don't care about undo being there. They only care about the dice being rigged, and that's why we've also tried experiments to purposely rig the dice so that it seems not rigged. So we're trying experiments like that as well. But undo, sorry, the whole aspect of undo is not a thing that people complain about. Yeah.
Hey Sohrab, thanks for that talk.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
So I just wanted to know, you said you had a game where you targeted like 70% revenue through ads and then 30 through IAP. And then from that you switched to a 30% ads, 70% IAP, right?
No, no, no. I was saying that usually games, like a lot of games, do have 30%, sorry, 70% ads, 30% IP. But for us, we did it the other way around.
I just wanted to understand, so in that model that you took, 70% IAP, did you see a significant enough rise in the ARPU to like completely negate ads? Because you were saying your revenue is
Right.
mainly driven from those IAPs.
Right, right. No, no, no. I'm not saying ads are bad. Like basically, we do have systems that include ads as well. Like even like if you open a chest, you can get an extra item from the chest if you watch an ad, and then we have another whole system of ads where you get multiple rewards if you watch 5 ads in a row and stuff. But we wanted to focus first on IAPs to try and maximize, because as soon as gems came in, we saw that this could be a huge thing for our game, and that's why we kind of negated ads for a bit. But then now we're already starting to slowly work in and try and focus on people that probably aren't spending too much in the game and trying to throw more ads at them and try and get more revenue out of that. So we are working on that aspect also, but it's not just IAP. But this was just to focus on how IAP
No,
affected.
so my question was, how significant a rise did you see in the ARPU, the average revenue per user,
Right.
in when you switched, like when you used that 70% model
Right.
of that?
Sorry, I'm not sure. I'm not sure about the numbers exactly. I just know that it was significant. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Excuse me? Sir?
Oh,
So you
okay.
told about the KTM 4, right?
Yes.
You released a battle pass system.
Yes, yes.
So what do you think if you would have released the battle pass system like when the game launched? Like how would have performed?
So we already have a battle pass system for the entire game. That exists as well. This is an additional battle pass system inside an event. So if this event is running, there would be 2 battle pass systems at the same point of time inside the game, and people were willing to spend on both.
So like having an additional layer of battle pass
Yeah.
would make the player spend more.
Exactly, because it was priced well enough. We felt, and the amount of rewards were worth spending on, compared to if you look at our store prices or maybe other ways of getting the same amount of rewards. Spending that $2.99 on the KTM V4 Battle Pass was well worth it for them.
So was it expensive than the normal battle pass or was it cheaper than the battle pass?
It's cheaper than the normal Battle Pass because the normal Battle Pass has around, I think, 25 or 30 levels. Yeah, 25 levels, and you get a lot more cosmetic items. And this one is just one main cosmetic item with some coins or gems and stuff like that. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So hi,
Hey.
I'm Yuvraj, and my question is, do you have some sort of a dynamic algorithm or basic level of AI to support or to push undo more in your game, in gameplay?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
Do you have, during regular gameplay, do you have some sort of AI or something like that to push the undo more so people will
Okay. Yeah. So in our initial FTUE, we teach them what undo does. We kind of make sure that we do that, and also we've done experiments where if a person hasn't used undo, let's say for the first 5 games that they've played, then if they're in a situation where maybe they have an unfavorable roll, like you mentioned, the AI can kind of detect that maybe they could have killed this guy if he got a 6, and then but he doesn't want to use an undo, even though he just got a 5 and a 4 or something. Then we'll throw you a tooltip that pops up on top of the undo saying, hey, you can use an undo and try again. So we're trying all these kind of things, and some of them seem to work. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hey.
For the IAP, like 70% is IAP.
Yeah.
So for Ludo games, especially, what kind of percentage, what kind of income is there from India? Because we have a game which is like focused on India, but we don't see too many IAPs. Like that is where the problem lies. So,
Right.
Yeah, if you can give a split of that.
So sorry, you're talking about
The Ludo game.
like Ludo Star?
Yeah,
in
Ludo Star.
India. How does it do in India?
Yeah.
Okay.
Especially IAP.
Okay. It's terrible. in India, so we don't focus Ludo Star in India at all. Even Parcheesi Star is not focused in India. Our main audience for Ludo Star is actually UAE, Pakistan, Afghanistan, like those kind of countries. And for Parcheesi Star, it's Spain, South America, because Parcheesi is basically a Spanish version of Ludo. So yeah, that's where most of our monetization comes. If we look at India, it doesn't work. It doesn't work the same way. So we are actually again just last week I was talking to a product manager, and he's trying to do something related to more an ad-centric thing for India to see if that works. But yeah, it doesn't work as well in India. The whole IAP's model. Yeah.